Hi there, folks. This is episode 65 of the Mel Wright Real Estate Agent Show. We've got John Locke coming back from episode 64. I just thought the subject was so large and so interesting that I would invite John back. How you doing, John? Like to introduce yourself again quickly?
Sure thing. My name is John Locke, and I run a small WordPress consultancy in Sacramento called Lockdown Design that specializes in local SEO.
That's great. And I've got some exciting news, folks. Unfortunately, Jason Bates, my co-host, had to bow out from the show. He had some business and personal commitments that were taking too much time up. But I've got some great news. Thomas Nelson, who joined us on episode 57, has volunteered to be my co-host. What a brave man, folks. You've got to admit, he's brave. Would you like to introduce yourself, Thomas?
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Yes, Thomas Nelson with Big Block Realty here in San Diego, California. I'm a residential realtor, and you can find me on thomasjnelsonrealtor.com.
And I'm excited that Thomas has been so gracious to become my co-host, being that he's a practicing real estate agent himself with many years of experience. I think it's going to give a new perspective to the show and make it more relevant, really relevant to our audience. And thank you for agreeing to come on and be my co-host.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, John, we were really delving into SEO, local SEO, these directories in the last episode. So I would like to kind of jump off with this particular episode is talk about, if you've got a WordPress website or a site in general, what are some of the key on-site optimizations that you should know about that will help improve your site's ranking?
So a lot of people, when they have a site in a specialized industry, whether it's real estate, insurance, or anything like that, and especially like if you're going through another group like a brokerage, there's not a lot of attention paid to your personal site. But you can really stand out in the rankings if you do a few things. The things that you're going to want to do with your WordPress site is make sure that you post content that is important to your local market on a regular basis. Most of your competitors are not going to be doing this. So if you can answer questions that your clients have, you can, do more than what the other people are doing. People type stuff into Google, they're looking for answers to questions. And if you keep like a file of all the questions that people ask you, whether it's in person, whether they're asking you or via email, and you put pages up there that answer those questions, that's going to help you. Another thing you can do is, cover things that are of importance to your local market. A lot of local SEO comes down to local signals, which means making sure that you're not talking about, just like a housing market in general, but more about things that are affecting your local market. Is there a new building going up? Are there jobs coming to your market? Is something happening in your neighborhood? Is there some sort of are they putting like one of those little roundabouts in a neighborhood somewhere? These are all things that might be of interest to your local market, and it's going to tell Google that you are all about this local market.
I think that's great. I'd like to bring Thomas in and ask him a question. Thomas, obviously you've got your own website. How do you think you're managing it? How effective is it for you? What's your general attitude towards your website and websites in general when it comes to helping real estate professionals?
Sure. Well, I put a lot of value in having a website today. In fact, I literally just launched a brand new one last week, so I'm still actually actively working on it, getting all the bugs worked out, and then working on building up the content in it. As John was just saying about localism, pulling a lot of the content off my blog and bringing it into my website.
That's great. I'm going to go a little bit off track, but it's just interesting, John, and then bring you back roaring in, John, a little bit. So, Thomas, you just said that you've had a new website and you're in the midst of populating it and doing all the things you got to do when you launch a new website. So, in I think it's episode 63, we looked at all the choices that an agent has when it comes. Did you look at a few choices, and or was you were just kind of drawn to one provider, one vendor? What was the process of finding a vendor or solution that you liked?
Well, in a roundabout way, I did do a process of elimination, but it's more from experience. I bought my first website for real estate almost 18 years ago. So I've worked with several of the companies, Homes.com, Property Minder, all those big template sites over the years. So it was really just a process of elimination and jumping off to one that I hadn't tried yet that was mobile friendly and could be customized the way I wanted it to be customized, because unlike a lot of agents, I'm interactive with my site. And I didn't want something that I didn't have access to the back door and the toolbox, because I plan to work that site on a weekly basis the same way I work my blog on a daily basis.
All right. So who did you decide to go with?
This is actually back with Property Minder. So I came back full circle. They were one of the first site companies I worked with, and it was in part because they offered me an opportunity to save some money, and that spoke to me, as well as just they seemed to come into 2016 with all the bells and whistles you would expect from a website, including being mobile friendly.
All right, totally understandable. We all like a good deal if it can do what we're looking for, really. So I think I just wanted to ask you that because it's really interesting to get the perspective of somebody from the industry. Rather, I'm from a WordPress web development background, and John certainly is. So it's interesting. So John, I thought what you said about the SEO, but one of the things I really wanted to delve in a little bit is, you know, you got page titles, you got people that says meta descriptions no longer matter. And in some ways they do, but in some ways they really do. So a lot of people get very confused, John. Can you give a broad outline why page titles are important, why I feel meta descriptions are still important but a slightly different reason, and also why links, and I think you did delve into that in the last episode, but also maybe internal links, why they're important?
Sure thing. There's a lot to cover here, but so your page title and your meta description, for people who don't realize what that is, when you type something into Google and you see the results on there, the page title and the meta description is what you're reading. So it's very important to get these right, because not only is Google looking at these for a signal of what those pages are about, but this is the first interaction that people are going to have with your brand. What I see a lot of people do is they will keyword stuff their meta description and their page titles with just a list of keywords, because they don't necessarily understand what that is. And if people are, if this does show up in the Google results, people are going to look at that and say that's a bunch of alphabet soup. And the best way to do is, figure out, the best way to fit your keywords into the page title in a way that makes sense, in a way that's going to make people click on it. Having a provocative headline, and then writing a meta description that sums up the page, just very succinctly. A lot of people, another mistake that I see people do is they'll, write like War and Peace in their meta description. And Google cuts that off after about 150 characters. So what you're going to want to do is just keep it to like 1, maybe 2 very short sentences. Use the character count tool to see how long that is, and keep your page title to about 55 to 60 characters in total. That's the safe way to make sure that those are always going to display. If you have room, it might be good to put your brand name up there, but if you don't have room, and don't worry about that, and this is for the title. So definitely Google does look at the keywords. If you have the keyword like earlier in the page title, that's going to make a little bit of a difference, but you're going to want to mention like the keyword that you're trying to mention in both the page title and the meta description without making it sound spammy, making it sound as however you would say something to somebody in real life.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. The way I kind of explain it, and I don't know if you think this is a good way, is I say to people, well, your title is your newspaper headline, and your meta description is your subheadline.
Yep.
So look at it in those terms: headline, subheadline, and your title and your meta description should, subheadlines support the main headline, give more information, but they also must be linked to the headline.
No, I absolutely agree with that. The other thing you were saying about internal links. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say about what you're saying is that I think people, this is the slight, I'll be interested in what you think about this. Folks, don't go too broad, but also don't go too long in your page titles and in your sub descriptions. You're not going to compete with the big portals on really, really broad, but also as long as you in some way localize it, you don't have to go ridiculously. It's a term that I wasn't going to use, folks, so you might not. I was going to use long tail, but all that means is a kind of 5, 6, 7 word page title. I don't think you need to go really very, very long in your page titles. If you've got a local describer in it, that because the portals, they will not be able to compete if you can localize it. Would you agree with that, John?
I would say definitely. If you can include, and that's what I'm saying. If you're, a lot of people will mention like what counties or cities or neighborhoods they serve, maybe at the bottom of the page in the footer. But if you can make like specific pages or stories that deal with those areas, that would be a lot better. Localize it in that way.
And I was going to ask you, Thomas, is that one of your plans with your new website? Are you going to be writing up a lot about the local schools, the local facilities, anything, somebody moving from one area to other that you service? Are you going to be? Is that on your plan?
Yeah, that's actually part of my marketing plan annually when I blog, and I like to bring that into the website. Everything from what you both were mentioning, local events, things are changing in my local market area. Our mall's remodeling. We're bringing the trolley line in. Those are all things that are going to affect property values and interest in the area. And then I do things on local farmers markets or music festivals, things like that. So it's absolutely part of it, and that's why I was excited to be on this show with John, because a lot of what he's saying I need to hear, and so do a lot of other realtors. I think we come into this, we're not tech savvy, most of us. We know how to sell, but we don't know how to sell ourselves always. So this is great info.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. What we're going to do, folks, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to delve in the murky world a little bit, which John's going to shine the light about local SEO. You don't have to be afraid. You can get some really good results. We'll be back in a minute, folks. We're coming back, folks. I've got John Locke, who's a fantastic front-end developer, and he really knows his local SEO. And I've got my new co-host, got Thomas. He's going to be coming to help me. And we're talking about all SEO. So, John, let's talk about internal links and why they're important. It's something that a lot of us forget about. Is I had a chat with a online marketing director with a national company, and he said, I always try to get at least 3 links on each page, at least 3 links to 3 other resources on my website. What do you think about that? And I think it's something that people tend to forget, don't they?
Yeah, most definitely. Not only are backlinks to your site important, which is where another site links to your site, but internal links are also important because that gives Google a clue about what's important on your site. Now, internal links are where, say, you're looking at all the pages that are on your site. What are the pages that you're linking to, like, from within your site the most? Now, if you look at the top of your page, you're going to see in the main navigation, those things are linked to on every page. But if you have other pages where you're talking about different things, whether you're blogging or whether you just have different pages on there, you can cross-link to other pages in your site. And what that does is it gives it kind of a boost. It is a vote for that page, telling Google, this page is important. This is a page on my site that I want you to see, and so I'm linking to it. But more importantly than that, it gives the people who are coming to your site a chance to reference another page on your site from the site that they're browsing. Say if they're reading something about real estate in Reno, and then you mention like a certain neighborhood or a certain building or something like that, and then you link to another article where you're mentioning that, it gives them a reference point. And that keeps people on your site longer, which is important. You don't want people to like leave your site too quickly. You want to give them more to read, but by being helpful and giving them more information, you're building up your site, and you're giving Google clues about what's important. Internal linking is one thing that a lot of people neglect. But like the person that you just mentioned, I also try and link to past articles that I've written whenever I write something.
Yeah, and I think also don't be afraid to link to authoritative external sites that really help boost out what you're talking about, a local area, a park, a school, whatever. Localize, linking out. Some people don't like this for usability reasons, but it's always best to open I think it's still best to open a new tab, a new window, and so they can still easily go back to your site. You want to be helpful, but you also you don't want to move in a way. Would you agree with that at all, John?
A lot of people, there's a lot of discussion about that. I generally try and open external links that are leaving your site in a new window. And a lot of people will say that that's wrong. I think a lot of web people are kind of torn on this issue. A lot of people say that it's bad for usability, but a lot of, marketing-minded people will say, open it in a new tab. I think if you're linking within your site, open it in the same tab. If you're linking to another site, I would say that it's probably safe to open it in a new tab. But at the same time, I've seen users that didn't understand like either concept. You know what I mean? It's
about not only small businesses, but I've had some medium businesses said to me, we don't want people going to other website, and I've had to keep a very poker face and be very professional, because you can come across as a little bit dismissive, and I've just tried to re-educate why, and just go for the basic logical reasons why it is beneficial to have links to external resources?
Well, it's good for your users. Like, you can't just talk about yourself like the whole time, like you're the only authority in the world. I think it's totally fine to link to other things that provide more background story of what you're talking about. If you're linking to your, Wikipedia or your local chamber of commerce or your, some other reference point of what you're talking about, that's giving the people who are reading your site more information, and ultimately that's what you want to do. They're not going to leave your site. But you're giving them more backstory on the information, and that's better for them overall. I think the people who are like, we don't want people to leave our site and we're not going to external link to anybody, that comes from a real scarcity mindset, and you don't want to think like that.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I just want to also go into this whole world of mobile now. Thomas touched on it. You wanted a site that's responsive, but in SEO terms, you've got this whole world now that's developed over the past 5 to 6 years since the launch of the iPhone, where basically if you utilize a smartphone, Android or iPhone, to do search, search properties, people who are looking for properties, that they're probably going to be mobile, in their car, looking around. There's the whole area that are going to be tracked, aren't they, by their phones, and that tracking information, if they don't have it switched off, is going to be utilized to provide the search results which they're looking for, aren't they, John? And maybe give a broad outline how this has really changed the landscape.
Okay, so Google does use a bit of personalization in their search results, and a lot of people, like when you search for any type of like local business, a lot of you may notice you see like a kind of a 3-pack of a map and some results if you're searching for anything with a city or a state in it in the search term. And Google is trying to give you results based on your location, and that's whether you're on a desktop or a mobile. I mean, there's geolocation in any device pretty much nowadays, but they can detect, via the IP address, whether you're on your desktop or by geolocation, whether you're on your phone, like what results to give you. So they're trying to give you the best results that are in your local area, meaning they want you to be able to go somewhere. They figure you're looking for results of something you're wanting to go to, whether that's a realtor, a store, a gas station, whatever it is. So it's very important to make sure that you have a listing, a Google My Business listing, where you have your address, you have your phone number, your website, your hours of operation, and make sure that that is in Google Maps, because that way you have the possibility of showing up in that 3-pack. Obviously, that's the holy grail. You want to get into that 3-pack. You're not always going to be able to do it, because based on where somebody's located, they're going to see different results. So there's a lot of personalization coming in to search results. The biggest thing you can do is brand yourself to where you're a name that people recognize, and you're something that people are searching for. You don't want to just be like another generic realtor or another generic service, but definitely make sure that you have your address, your business name, your business phone number on all your properties, on your Google My Business, your realty listing. Make sure they're all the same everywhere. That's another opportunity that we talked about in the previous episode.
We did. When it comes to actual mobile, how much influence also do the review sites, the industry review sites, have in determining if you're going to show up in that pack or in the first kind of group of listings linked to a search parameter somebody's doing on a mobile device?
Okay, so Search Engine Journal, they do a report each year, along with Moz, of the top factors in local ranking. And for this year that we just did, they said that reviews were about 10% of all factors when it comes to local search results. So reviews are huge. And here's another thing that a lot of people don't know. If you're on Google Maps, if you get above 5 reviews, your star rating will show in Google Maps. But if you get less than 5 reviews for your business, these are Google reviews, by the way, they won't show. So obviously the goal is to get, more than 5 reviews, get all 5 stars. Reviews are huge because they tell people, what you're about, whether you're a good service or whether you're a good realtor, a good, agent or not. But Google reviews are not the only place you should seek this. You can also get reviews on Yelp, Facebook, the Better Business Bureau, YP.com. These are all things that in the search results you may see a star rating show up because Google parses the metadata, the schema data in these as something that they can show in search results. So these are all places that I would look to. I would also, for realtors specifically, I would make sure that you're getting reviews on Zillow. Make sure you're getting reviews on Realtor.com, Trulia, any other industry-related sites.
I think that's fantastic. I'm just going to ask Thomas, on reflection, how, I know it's not easy actually. It's easy to say, Thomas, but it's harder to actually, even if you're offered outstanding service, to get people to review you. You got to be very. So, what's your experience of this, and how are you? Do you think it's really important, and what kind of steps have you done or are doing to try and generate more reviews?
Sure. Well, first of all, yes, reviews are extremely important, especially today. So what I do as part of my business practice is, as we're heading into close of escrow that week, I start sending my clients easy setup links so that they can just click a link and they're on Zillow, they're on Realtor.com, they're on my Yelp site, and they can write reviews. I think it's a best practice to get them while we're closing, because it's harder to get them after closing because the excitement's already waning and they're off to, picking out paint and carpet and that kind of thing. So I like to get them while the excitement's still there and the focus is on the teamwork that we've built over the last few months. So yes, absolutely important. In fact, what John was mentioning, I actually had a question. When you say getting a Google review, outside of all these sites you mentioned and that I've mentioned, how do you get an actual Google review? Like, where do you send your clients to Google review you?
Okay, so yeah, so that's definitely gotten more difficult. It used to be you could send them to your business Google Plus page. Well,
Okay.
all that has changed. Now you have to send them to Google Maps.
Okay.
And here's a trick that I do: is if you Google the name of your business with the address on your desktop, you will see in that right sidebar, you'll see your Google listing show up. And then there will be a link where it says write a review or, look at the reviews.
Okay.
Click that and you'll see a pop-up mode will come up with all the reviews. Copy the URL that's in the address bar. And you can test that out in an incognito window as well. But that's what you want to send to people because otherwise they will never find it.
No.
Okay.
What is the experience with this when it comes to mobile, John? Is it almost as more difficult, harder for people to leave reviews?
I think it's harder on Google. I think it's definitely much more difficult. I don't see a lot of people getting reviews. Like I said, I figured out how to do this, so I still try and get like a lot of these. It's
almost like since and thanks for asking that, Thomas, because since they've done their changes around Google Plus, about linking Google Plus with Gmail, they broke that up. I don't know exactly when they did it, John. When did they do these changes?
So they did some of these. They've been slowly making these changes since last year or so.
Yeah, it was.
But it was probably like late last year or early this year that it was like completely like you can't go to Google Plus anymore to leave
It's
a
almost
review.
like they're attempting to really not stop it, but really, it's quite odd in a way, bury it, isn't it, John? They really are attempting to bury where you can leave these reviews for what they've now renamed Google Maps, isn't it?
Well, I think a lot of it is they also have a thing, an initiative that they're doing called Google Local Guides. It's almost, I would say, it's almost similar to like Yelp Elite, where they're encouraging people to leave tips. I would say it's almost like a cross between Yelp Elite and, say, something like Foursquare, where people leave tips. This is something that they're trying to get people to do too. So that might be part of why they took reviews completely out of Google Plus, and it could be because people were trying to rig the system, or because I have seen that like local places where it's an employee leaving a review or the owner's wife or stuff like that, and so maybe moving it to Maps, it makes it a little bit easier for them to keep the false reviews out. Because I will tell you something, Google is probably the easiest to get a fake review in. That one and Facebook and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
Yelp is definitely harder.
Well, the thing I advise in the real estate industry to look at is Google, but obviously there's been some changes and you have to hold their hand a little bit just to find where to leave them, and then they can then ask their clients or the people they're doing business with to go there. Facebook, Realtor.com, they're the more open platforms, and then the Zillow is semi. You got to register, and they're a bit more difficult to get a review. If somebody, you really got to check over the client to see if maybe they were either on there already or they've had such a fantastic experience that you can hold their hand a little bit. And then the other one is Yelp, which is a bit of a beast in its own breath. And we touched that on last week's episode, didn't we, John?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
About if you haven't left prior reviews and other qualifying flags that show up to Yelp, your review is going to get buried. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, absolutely. The ideal person, that's another thing that I want to reiterate from last week is I kind of scout out, like, say, my clients, my customers, and like Thomas said, I'm trying to strike when the iron's hot, when they're the most excited, when the project is wrapping up. That's when you want to send them this stuff. But I will scout them out, see where they're at. If they're not on Yelp, I don't want to encourage them to go sign up. If they're already there and they have a profile photo and it's linked to their Facebook, and they've left other reviews, then yeah, I'm going to encourage them to leave a review. But if I'm making them sign up for it for the first time, more than likely it's going to get filtered out into the not recommended pile, and it'll just be thrown in the dungeon and never seen again. So
yeah, that's the main thing I would say to you, Thomas, is it's great to hear that you're proactive and you're doing a lot more than a lot of agents do. But I would encourage you to scout out the people a bit, see which. So I know it causes a little bit more extra work, but you find it's going to be a lot more beneficial because if one of your links is to Yelp and they haven't got a review and they've been really kind to you and they do leave, they fill in, they join, they fill in the review, it's very likely, Thomas, that it's just going to be buried.
Yeah, I've actually had that happen. I've had some great reviews stuffed down where you can still get to them, but you got to work to find them. And I didn't realize that was what was happening. I mean, that kind of shed a light on what was happening, John. So thank you. And something else you mentioned in last week's podcast that I wanted to ask you is you mentioned about having too many 5-star reviews. And if your clients are inclined to do that, I mean, and I'm trying to be authentic, but I mean, it almost sounds like we need to ask a few of them not to give us 5 stars. And I mean, how do you control that?
Can I actually jump in?
Yeah, jump in.
That lot of that, Thomas, was down to me. Actually, I didn't explain it that very well. I'm sure John would agree. I really think when you get into the multiples, let's say 15, 20, 30 reviews, and some agents are very, very aggressive about getting reviews. God bless them. But when you get into like 30, 40, 50 reviews, and every one of them is 5-star, and they're singing the praises, I think then alarm bells but start ringing a little bit. That's what I meant when I was saying that, Thomas. But I think if you're in the 5, 10, 12 reviews, having 12 exceptional reviews, I think that's quite legit. What do you think, John?
Well, I think on a long enough timeline, you're going to get a review that's not a 5-star.
Yeah.
So you just work on getting reviews. I think, you know, eventually you'll get a 4-star or even a 3-star. But the best way is to just build up a big catalog. I would say for realtors, especially, like Zillow is important to get reviews on. I'd say that one is pretty important. So
if they don't have a Yelp account already, that Zillow would be a good alternative for.
I would encourage everybody to get, if they're running any sort of business, I would encourage people to get a Yelp, because again, that's like another place where it's mentioning your local, you know, presence. But definitely, like if I was a realtor, I would say like probably the first ones I would concentrate on would be Zillow, Google, Yelp if you have one, probably realtor.com. One trick that I do is, like, say if you're Googling like Reno realty agent or real estate agent, and then look at the results that come up in Google Maps. Okay, so do this in Google Maps. Just Google, you know, whatever your city is, real estate agent. Okay, and then look at the top 10, the top 20. It'll give you like a little thing where you click on each one, like in the left sidebar, and then there should be like some sort of link where it says like see more see other places where this was linked to, or the reviews, and make a note of like where everybody that's in the top rank is getting those other reviews or getting those other backlinks. And those are the sites that you should also be on. And this goes for the industry. But that's definitely like a clue.
That's great advice.
Right. I think we'll wrap it up now. John's really busy, and he has to deal with insane clients that want video playing in their background, which consumes gobs of time. So he's going to be busy at that. And so, John, how can people get hold of you, John, and learn more about what we've discussed, which is, I feel, been really helpful over the past 2 episodes?
Well, if you want to learn more, you can definitely find me at my website, which is lockdowndesign.com. And you can also follow me on Twitter at lockdown_. Thomas, yes. How do they find you?
Well, you can find me on my website, thomasjnelsonrealtor.com. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Yelp.
Yes, and folks, you can find me and Mel Wright on mel-wright.com. We offer a number of packages starting at $29.99 that help realtors and real estate professionals get in front of your biggest referral resource, people that know you, trust you in your community. And we also generate a lot of new leads utilizing the power of Facebook advertisement. So if that's interesting, go to the Mel Wright site and contact us, and we give you a demo, and we see if we can help you get the kind of results that you're looking for. in 2017. That's rapidly coming. Thank you so much, John, for coming on the show. It's much appreciated. And Thomas, I think we've introduced you to the listeners, and I'm looking forward over the coming weeks and months us delving in the world of real estate and finding some real experts and giving real value to our listeners. Thank you for agreeing to become my co-host.
Well, it's my pleasure, Jonathan. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to our journey.
That's great, folks. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.